So, my theory is that the image of Eboshi is inspired by Mao Zedong in his youth, but she was depicted as a woman of great beauty. So again, Eboshi is sold by a slave dealer, becomes a wife of a Wako pirate, but later kills the leader, steals an advanced technology from Ming and tries to make an independent country in Japan. In other words, she's a revolutionist as well as a terrorist. For her, both kings and gods are nothing but obstacles. Mao Zedong himself said religion is an opium, and denied religion or even the existence of a god. Likewise to Eboshi, the forest spirit is nothing more than a giant creature, and even though the imperial family claims we come of a family of the gods, they are mere politicians. I believe Eboshi thinks we need neither for my ideal country. In my country, everyone is equal, and our lives will be put together rationally. Not only that, she's armed with a thoroughly logical mind. I'm not gonna deal with such superstitious nonsense. She's also literally armed, so she's a real terrorist. And I see this theory time to time on the internet. I also question, isn't Eboshi and Sun mother and daughter? Well, people who write something similar on the internet all say, although there's no evidence, and I don't have any proof either. Because Miyazaki himself has never mentioned any of that. In fact, I thought maybe Suzuki-san has said something carelessly since he's chit-chatty. So I looked up most of his remarks, but I couldn't find a single word of evidence. However, although there's no evidence, there are things that are unnatural. If you see the settings of Sun's upbringing, it only says she was abandoned as a scapegoat by a human who has offended the forest. That's all there is for the official setting. As I said a little while ago, even a side character like Eboshi has a setting like she's sold to a foreign country and so on, or Jigo and so many other characters have tons of settings, but somehow Sun is the only one who has just one line description about who she is. It's too insufficient and unnatural. Moreover, there are many recollection scenes during the movie, but there is none that depicts Sun as a baby. So I can't help but to think that there must be a reason that only Sun has such brief setting. And if Sun is Eboshi's daughter, if Princess Mononoke was her daughter, then many things can be explained. For example, if Eboshi has a child with the Wako pirate, she must not love the child very much, considering the fact that she becomes his wife and eventually kills him. Well, you might say, no, she's a woman, she must love her own child, but no, Eboshi's not a regular woman. She's a female version of Mao Zedong. If we see her as Mao Zedong, we can also think that she feels a bit differently than other ordinary women. And of course, there is no child in Irontown. As I said before, I think this is because of the strict birth control. If Eboshi made all villagers know that their leader abandoned or lost her own precious child, it's easier for me to understand and everything makes sense clearly why everyone in the village is convinced by the rule that they can't make a child. It also gets easier to understand that Moro, the foster parent, and Eboshi, the true parent, hate each other so strongly if we think Eboshi and Sun are a mother-daughter relationship. I mean, in the first half, Moro is shot and injured by Eboshi, but until then, there should be no reason for Moro to have a strong personal grudge against Eboshi. However, both of them have that much grudge against each other by name. Moro is saying that the fight is not over until I bite Eboshi to death. So no matter how you look at it, it's a personal grudge against Eboshi. As for Eboshi, it appears as a precise symbol of her own guilt that a Japanese wolf called Moro is raising her own child that she abandoned. Every time she sees her daughter, who was raised by a Japanese dog, no matter how much she thought that Sun is no longer her child, she can't help feeling guilty. I've always wondered if the red pattern on Sun's face in a tattoo, who put it in for what purpose? One interpretation is to think when Sun grew up, she put it in by herself as a sign of determination that she was no longer a human being, so would never shed tears again. I also kind of think, actually, it may have been put in by whoever abandoned her to indicate that she was no longer a human. Anyway, the emotions between Moro and Eboshi can be explained well. What should I say? If we focus on the mother and daughter relationship between Sun and Eboshi. And let me show you. In the first half of the movie, there is a scene where Lady Eboshi talks to Ashitaka on a rooftop of Iron Town in a nice atmosphere. Eboshi says, "Stay here, Ashitaka, and help me kill the forest spirit." So she tries to persuade him to stay and work in Iron Town. Then she continues, "If the ancient gods disappear and the light enters into the forest, this place will be a rich land and Princess Mononoke will become human again." In other words, Eboshi thinks Sun or Princess Mononoke hates Eboshi because Moro taught her to hate her. That's why she's actually thinking, if I kill Moro and wipe out all the wolves, Sun will come back to human world. And in the following scene where Sun comes into Iron Town alone to assassinate Eboshi, she in fact does not fight Sun seriously. Although Eboshi is clearly superior to Sun in martial arts and sword fight, she does not try to finish Sun, but instead she makes her subordinates surround her with spears to block her way out. She fights like a cat bullying a mouse without killing it. The reason for this is because Eboshi is waiting for Sun to run out of energy and fall down so she can catch her alive. But on the surface, she gives Sun "I'm going to kill you" look when she fights. She's actually a lot stronger than Sun, but she doesn't deal with her seriously. And Moro, a Japanese wolf, hates Eboshi deeply, but even she seems to want Sun to return to the human world. This is a scene where Moro and Sun part. And when Sun leaves Moro saying, "I'm going to be the eyes for Okoto," she hugs Moro and acts like a child in front of her mom for the first time. Then Moro opens her eyes with long eyelashes and looks at her. The scene makes us realize, oh, she was a sexy wolf. It's also a scene where Jigo and Eboshi finally begin hunting the forest spirit and Sun makes the final farewell to her mother and follow Okoto. They both know that they will never see each other again. Here, Moro says, "You have a way to live with that young man." Well, the real voice is a little bit more high-pitched. But when Ashitaka says earlier, "I will live with Sun, she's a human," Moro mocks Ashitaka insanely and says, like this, "How will you live with her?" In other words, Moro is someone who doesn't speak her mind. It's been consistent through the movie that she almost never says what's in her mind. When she's reunited with Okoto, the god of the wild boars, who was her lover before, she only says, "Okoto, finally a boar who will listen to reason." Or, "You can't even speak, can you?" As you can see, she never says what's truly in her mind. This is one incident that you can see in this video where a singer, Akihiro Miwa, voiced Moro, and you can see this in the video. At first, Miwa was acting normally without realizing the complex emotion Moro had toward Okoto. But when he said, "Okoto, finally a boar who will listen to reason," Miyazaki, who heard it, couldn't hold his patience, so he dashed out of the adjustment booth, ran up to Miwa and said, and then he said, "You see, Moro was actually in a relationship with Okoto." Miwa heard it and said, "What? A wolf and a wild boar?" Then Miyazaki said, "Yes, the wolf and the wild boar were in a relationship." Then Miwa was deeply convinced and said, "Oh, now I see." And in the next recording, he changed his tone of voice a little bit. He just added a slight nuance to his lines, such as, "You can't even speak, can you?" which now sounded like a woman describing a man who used to be in love relationship with her in the old days and feeling pitiful toward herself for liking such a man. Or a line, "Okoto, finally a boar who will listen to reason," which sounded like a high school girl who saw her boyfriend and told her friend, "Oh, here comes that idiot." Then write it down in the storyboard. But he just doesn't. That Moro and Okoto were in a love relationship. I mean, really, if you think about it, if Miyazaki did not tell the setting to Miwa during the voice recording, and if the TV crew of Nihon TV did not shoot that moment by chance, then nobody would have found it out. This guy does this kind of thing so often. So why does he do that? Let's talk about Miyazaki's unique way of playwriting and the essence of treating his characters in the second half tonight. And I will discuss some reasons. While Moro says to Ashitaka, "How will you live with her?" she's actually thinking that she can let Sun return to the human world. But to do so, the biggest premise is to kill Eboshi. And, well, Moro can't let Sun return to the world where Eboshi exists. It's because Lady Eboshi is a destroyer of the forest and is especially vicious among humans. So, in other words, the two women, Moro and Eboshi, are both trying to save Sun. On the other hand, Eboshi is thinking, if we kill the Japanese wolves and kill the forest spirit, the light will enter into the forest. In another word, if the forest becomes civilized, part of human society and a part of mere natural resource, Princess Mononoke, who I have once abandoned, will be able to return to the human world. This movie is very easy to understand if you think of it as a story of two mothers who are trying to save their daughter, pulling her from both sides. Because Moro and Eboshi say exactly the same lines to Ashitaka. As I said earlier, Moro mocks Ashitaka by saying, "How are you going to live with her? Are you going to fight humans with her?" Eboshi also says the exact same line to Ashitaka, who comes to tell her that Iron Town is under attack. Take a look at this. In this scene, Eboshi interrogates Ashitaka. "You want me to stop killing the forest spirit and kill the samurai instead?" In the exact same composition as when Moro mocks Ashitaka. It cannot be a coincidence that the two characters say something of the same meaning in a left-right symmetry. If you see it in a playwriter's point of view, there's no way this happens without any intention. The two of them are questioning Ashitaka. "How do you want me to live? What do you want me to do about her? You want me to stop killing the forest spirit and kill the samurai instead? Or are you saying that you'll fight humans?" They're depicted in a complete right-left symmetry while they speak to the same character, Ashitaka. It means that the two mothers are asking about their daughter's life to a man who will become her husband. And there are also rhetorical questions. Knowing Ashitaka won't say yes, they ask him, "Is that what you want?" In other words, they're being a scary mom going, "How serious are you about my daughter?" while they both mock him in the same tone. So they mock and return the same lines to Ashitaka. Because the two are in the same position, which is being a mother as well as a tribal leader. These are what I was thinking before I came to think, oh, isn't Eboshi's Sun's real mother? Just like I said earlier, there's no evidence, but nothing contradicts if we think like that, and it wouldn't be strange if Miyazaki had that kind of hidden settings, considering the fact that he wasn't going to make the movie without telling anyone about such an important setting on how Okoto and Moro used to be in a relationship. However, both Moro and Eboshi try not to let Sun notice that Sun's real mother is Eboshi. But both mothers believe that if they don't kill the other one, then there's no future for Sun, and that's how they fight each other. And next,